I love this country.
Yeah.
This country has given me so much. I go to the Arlington Cemetery in DC and I cry for the people that are there. And I give thanks for what they've done for me. And I don't think that many people can understand that level of gratitude, because even with all the political differences that we have right now, we are in the best country that has ever existed. You are a gift to the world. I'm a gift to the world, right? When we don't put our talents and our gifts to work, we're taking away. We're not making a contribution.
I love your perspective on victimhood. The struggles you've had. You could sit in the corner and go, God, my life was hard. Why was it so hard? Why me?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Why was I subjected to this?
How can I have an excuse when I live in this country with everything that I have access to not be great?
Your story isn't about PLEX Capital. It's about you and what Amanda went through to become the CEO of PLEX Capital. But to be sitting here across the table from me and having this conversation, the journey that it took, it's inspiring. Well, I was going to reflect back on one I did with Andre Davis. I don't know if you know Andre.
I do not know.
He's an African-American community connector kind of guy. He knows everybody. I was at the Big Brothers Big Sister groundbreaking a couple of weeks ago, and we're standing in the street, and they're getting the shovels out to do the whole thing. And Andre was there, and he asked me how I thought the podcast went that he did, and I said, well, I think there were parts of it I would have challenged you more on, but I didn't want to destroy our friendship.
Yeah.
And one of the things he said to me, and this is the victimhood thing you were talking about, is that when he goes into a room, his first reaction is, I don't see anybody else who looks like me. And I said, well, what would that matter? Mm-hmm. I said, well, because I know I'm being judged. And I said, okay, you're being judged harshly because you look different than everybody else in the room? Well, I don't know that, but that I make those assumptions based on my lived experience. And I said, well, what I hear minorities sort of accuse white people of is what's called implicit bias. Mm-hmm. And I said, what you just described is your implicit bias. Why do you think everybody's judging you harshly?
Yeah.
I said, I've been in many rooms like that where I've walked in. And my sense is everybody's judging everybody. You're not the
Regardless
only one.
Regardless of the color.
They're not picking on you because you're a different color. Uh-huh. They're just judging everybody.
Yeah.
And that's just the nature of meeting people. That's what socializing is. It's really, social cues are so important, and the dynamic and the body language and everything are so important. But unless you actually do speak up and say something stupid, nobody's actually judging you for anything other than, well, they're wondering why I'm here. No, I don't think they're wondering why they're there and how are they going to contribute and what am I going to say that's intelligent and contributing to the conversation. Not, hey, what's that guy going to say?
Yeah.
Or is he going to say anything?
Yeah, he's black, she's Mexican.
Yeah,
no.
What? I said, I'm sorry, but that to me appears like like your implicit bias.
Don, my biggest supporters in my, I would say my entire life, have been white men.
Yeah.
In their 50s, their 60s, their 70s.
Yeah.
And when I look at that, who have been the ones that have blocked me the most? It's been my own family, right? It's been my own people. Yeah. And so I don't, when I walk into a room, no one intimidates me. Absolutely not. And it's not because I walk in feeling better than them. It's because I feel like we're all equal, right? And we're gathered here to do something that we all have in common.
Right. We're here for a reason.
Yeah. So I think that's the thing that really hurts me to see, especially with inclusion, the
DEI.
Yeah.
Well, that's what the conversation was actually about. Was DEI.
It's to me and you know this, as a business owner, I don't care if you're black, brown, white. I want to know who's gonna be the best of the best.
Yeah.
And I don't need any of those rules because I'm gonna bring the best of the best, regardless of the color of your skin or whatever. Right. Yeah. And so I think that is something that, by the grace of God, He's given me clarity on that. And I've never walked into a room feeling like I'm the only woman or I'm the only minority or I'm the youngest one.
Right.
I go in saying, okay, do I know my craft?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And what value can I bring in?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I grew up in a neighborhood in Chicago with, Italians and Puerto Ricans and Polish people. I used to deliver a newspaper. I delivered 2 different Polish language newspapers in the morning. And I was the only Asian-looking kind of person around. And so, I get picked on from time to time. And of course, but we picked on everybody.
Yeah.
There was no political
It was a
correctness.
thing. Yeah.
The WAPs and the mix and the, the spics and everybody. I mean, it was just everybody got picked on, right? And I'm the chink, right? And so, you just take it with a grain of salt and go, yeah, it's just stupid kid stuff, and you move on. It doesn't scar you for life. It's this notion that, hate speech is violence. No, it's sticks and stones will break your bones, but names will never hurt me.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think that, so Amanda,
yes.
Villarreal.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, Villarreal.
You're gonna say it better than I am because you speak the language. But PLEX Capital, and I want to thank you for being here first and foremost. And I know that we started the conversation before I even introduced you, so
no worries.
My apologies for that. But I kind of like the idea of kind of naturally rolling into a conversation and then taking a moment to say thank you for being here. So thank you. But continuing the conversation, I think it's important to note that, your sense of the struggles you've had, you could certainly sit in the corner and go, God, my life was hard. Why was it so hard? Why me?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Why was I subjected to this? Why me? Right? But I love your perspective on victimhood, and I'd love you to articulate your thoughts on that because you did it off camera, and I want you to do it again because it was very poignant.
Thank you. Well, Don, thank you so much. I love sharing my story, and there was a point in my life where I didn't feel like I needed to, but as I got closer to my faith, I'm a Catholic woman of faith, and I'm not perfect. I'm still in the journey.
You're not perfect?
I am not
Oh,
perfect.
come
I
on.
hate to break it to you. But through this journey and going back to my faith, and by the grace of God, being able to understand that He has created each individual, each human being with a purpose, and with my desire to be able to glorify Him in everything that I do, it is for the reason that I said, yeah, absolutely. And Amber, we know each other for I think 5-6 years already.
Yeah, she said that. Yeah.
So I was like, okay, yeah, let's go ahead and do this. I'll share a little bit about my background, so then I can share with you my perspective, why it is that I believe what I believe.
Well, obviously your perspective has been developed over the years that, you've been aware of what's going on in the world. So yeah, I'd love to hear sort of your origin story and where this little girl from Guadalajara came from. Well, we know where you came from.
Well, you pronounced it perfectly.
Thanks. I dumb luck. Every once in a while I get it right.
Yeah.
But I'd love to hear your journey,
sure,
because it is pretty fascinating, and I
think
the audience would love to hear it.
No, absolutely. I was born in Guadalajara, Mexico, so came out of a house made of adobe or mud, right? And this was in 1989. My parents finally decided that we needed something else aside from what we had in our little village in Mexico. And at that point, I had 3 older brothers, and then I was the youngest one. I'm the only girl in the family. Later on, 2 more brothers came, and that was when we were in the States. But going back to the little village, we immigrated, and literally I have little flashes from that little 5-year-old girl crossing the border through California, so Mexicali into Southern California. And when we came with nothing. Like literally, there was no suitcases or anything like that. We came to live in a house, in a trailer that was a camping trailer made, one of those camping trailers like the egg-shaped. I don't know if you remember in the 80s. Yeah. Well, imagine that was our home for a few years, and that was for mom, dad, my 3 older brothers, and myself. Ooh. So 5 people. My dad had to build a little shower outside with plywood, and then for anything else, we would have to go out to the woods, right? So I have all of those memories, and they're very, very clear.
Yeah.
We would also get up early in the morning, Dawn, to go to the grape fields and pick grapes. So the smell of the bean burritos that my mom would cook in the morning at 3 o'clock in the morning to take for lunch, that was my alarm clock. Like I could just smell the burritos, and then we would go out typically around 4 o'clock in the morning. And I get a little bit emotional because it's pretty neat. Like those experiences taught me a lot. And we would go out and work on the grape fields. And then we would come home, rest for a little bit, and then go out to the streets and pick up cans so we could recycle them. Yeah, so bottles and cans and so on. So that was my early childhood.
Where was this now? Where were you when this?
That was in Southern California.
Where in Southern Cal?
Thermal.
Mexicali or?
Thermal, California.
Thermal. Okay, so just north of the border.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's about walking distance.
15 minutes from Coachella. If you've heard of the big Coachella Fest, it's about 15 minutes from there.
Okay.
Yeah. And so we had that experience. Fast forward to that, my dad was able to apply through the amnesty of Ronald Reagan from 1989. But thankfully, I'm so grateful for that amnesty because it really changed my life and for future generations, for my children as well. So we went through that process. That took a little bit longer. I think it was right about 10 years for us to finally get our green card, and then another 10 years for me to become a citizen. So 20 years total to obtain my citizenship.
Well, congratulations on that. I'm glad
you
you did become a citizen.
Yeah, it's the most beautiful thing. But going back to Thermal, so as a child, I just saw my parents, Dawn, with always this worry about money. There was never enough money. And there were several things that marked me as a child, and I'll talk about a couple. One of them was when my parents went to the grocery store to buy milk for, back then, my baby brother, who had come along a few years later. And they walked out of the grocery store empty-handed because they were missing 1 penny.
No.
Right? And I remember their faces.
Yeah.
And it's so clear, like as I'm speaking to you right now, sharing the story, I can see them, and it's painful, right? And so mom and dad basically said, go out to the parking lot and see if you can find a penny. Yes.
Oh my gosh.
And we could not find a penny. So until this day, if I'm walking out and I see a penny, I'm going to pick it up. It doesn't matter if it's dirty.
My wife does the same thing. She does the same thing. And I look at her like, Like, why would you do that? Just go get a wet wipe or something when you get done with that. But yeah, she's that way too.
It's pretty, I do it out of principle, right? Like it's something that marked me. And a penny, what does a penny get you? Well, it might not get me much, but what it taught me, it's an invaluable lesson. And so I respect money. The other thing that marked me was as a young child, I was sexually abused by a family member, a very close family member. And that is something that I kept to myself for up until 4 years ago. So no one knew, right? And so you think about that little girl, like trying to process the evil that had happened and not even realizing that it was something evil, right? Yeah. But that it had marked me. And so my perspective comes from experiences like that. There's so much more, but just so you can get an idea and why it is that I believe what I believe. And my hope with this conversation is that whomever is listening to us, that they understand that my goal is to encourage people and say, look at some of the highlights of my life that I'm sharing, and I'm not sharing everything. Yeah. And I believe that we have the power to stop the victimization. And I think we have enough victims in this world. And I don't necessarily want to take away from anyone's experience because everyone has had horrible experiences, and we can try to say like, well, this one is worse than the other. We all have had something that has marked us, right? Yeah. And I think that you have a choice, Dawn. You can either victimize yourself and let that experience continue to rob you and rob the entire world of the greatness that you possess, or to acknowledge that it happened, and your responsibility if something happened to you is to go heal yourself, right? I'll share my healing experience. 4 years ago, I was going through some very, very difficult times, more so mentally. And I think that it was time for me to share with my family what had happened to me as a child. Mm-hmm. Although I had promised myself I was never going to share it with anyone else because it was a very, very close member of the family, as it usually happens. Yeah. And I couldn't keep it anymore. And I thought, I need healing.
Yeah.
And so I went through that process and worked with counselors, therapists, psychologists. Everything that could help me, because I was in desperate mode trying to figure out what is going on with me.
You had to unload that baggage, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's a good thing.
And so through all of that, I'm a cradle Catholic, but I never understood anything about my faith. So like many people probably that grew up Christians or Catholics, we just knew about our faith, but we really didn't know what it meant.
Kind of follow the ritual. Yeah, I grew up the same way. I grew up Catholic, and
tradition.
My parents would send me off to church on Sunday mornings when I would rather have stayed home and watched TV. And but we went. My brother and I went, and had no idea what we were doing there. You just stand up and sit down and kneel when everybody else does. Yeah. It was all in Latin at that time, and so couldn't really understand what was going on, even if I wanted to.
Well, it's all tradition at times, right? Yeah, we just do whatever we do because we're told to do it. And I decided that I wanted to go back to the Catholic Church, but I was going to go as a newbie. I needed formation. I needed to understand why it is that we believe the things that we believe, that we do the things that we do, etc. And I was really lucky because I ended up at St. Michael's, which is a local Catholic church here in Overland Park. And it's been the most amazing gift. They helped me so much through the healing process, and they still continue to do so. And I was able to form such a beautiful faith family that has been my anchor, my support, and so on. And so I think, going back, I think that everyone has the responsibility to go and heal. Yeah. We are robbing this world from not healing. And then we're not thinking about what that will do to future generations. So if you have children and you're broken, all of that will be passed on, right?
Why do you think that is? I listen to different podcasts and different people who talk about topical issues and, social issues because I'm curious. I want to understand. And I listen even to, African Americans talk about, well, you owe us reparations for, slavery and things like that. And I'm thinking, well, you were never a slave. Your father wasn't a slave. Your grandfather wasn't a slave. I mean, how many generations of baggage are you going to pull forward with you and carry around as if it's somehow your trauma? Exactly. It wasn't your trauma. You don't own that. Yeah. And nor do any of the people that you're asking for money from. They didn't own the slaves either. I mean, it was less than like 2% of the population back in the 1850s who actually did own slaves. The other 98% of people were like, no, we don't even like that idea. Let's stop doing that. Of course. But, there were big plantations and things like that in the south of our country that, wanted to hang on to it. How is that even a topical issue today? Why are people standing in front of a microphone slamming people about, you owe me?
Exactly.
I owe you. How do you come to that conclusion? Where does that come from? Where's it even?
Well, first and foremost, I love everyone, right? I love the world. I usually mess around with my partner. I'm like, I'm a woman for the world and of the world, right? And he just laughs. So I just want to make sure that I make that clear. I love everyone. And I understand that we all have trauma. But one of the things, I've had similar conversations, and I always ask them to think about the Jewish community. Yeah. Half of the Jewish community was brutally killed. Yeah. And how do you see that Jewish community is one of the most wealthiest communities in the world? Yeah. What are they doing differently? And I think what they're doing differently is that they're taking ownership and they're saying, that happened to us. Yeah. And there's so much healing that needs to be done. And I sit at the Menorah Foundation. I'm one of the board members. And so I get to work with them as well. And I just see how they operate, right? They're people of action. Yeah. They're like, that happened to us, but what are we going to do to continue to make our community better and flourish? Right. And I think that those are the two mindsets where you have a victim and you have someone that is saying, that happened. Yeah. But what am I going to do about it? I'm the change. The change comes from me, right? Yeah. And I am so passionate about that. And when I hear people just victimizing themselves and saying, and this is generally speaking, not only blacks or browns or whites, everyone, we all have a tendency of victimizing ourselves at one point or another. But Dawn, it is our responsibility to look at ourselves and say, do I let that thing that happened to me or my ancestors or whomever continue to take away from my life? Right. And not only that, but you got to remember, you are a gift to the world. I'm a gift to the world, right? when we don't put our talents and our gifts to work, we're taking away. We're not making a contribution. And so that is my whole passion, being able to say, be aware of what has happened to you, but take responsibility, because we've all had some level of pain and experiences in our lives.
Yeah, I think, well, I believe that your experiences are, the sum of your experiences what equals wisdom.
Yeah.
Right? And both good and bad, because they both inform that thinking, right? You become wiser as you get older. Why? Because you had more experiences. But the early experiences that shape you, you become that person. And over time, your attitude about things will shift, but they won't change radically from when you were a teenager, let's say. You just didn't realize it then, that you are already the person you are going to become.
Yeah.
You just don't know what that means yet. And I think that when young people I hear complain about capitalism, they complain about whatever. It's pick anything, because they, no matter
there's always something.
No matter what you say, there's always somebody who wants to complain about the contrary view, and that's fine. We should have open discussion about those things. But when I hear young people complain, especially about my life, life today for me is a lot harder than it was for you, Boomer. I shudder at that. I think, well, first of all, you're erecting barriers to your life that are irrational. Yeah. Why would you do that? Why would you compare your 25-year-oldness to my 70-year-oldness? What I went through, I worked really hard to make sure my kids never had to go through, nor their kids have to go through. And so my entire life's work has been about making life better for my children as they did and do what they do. And why would I have robbed this younger generation by being a boomer and now things are harder for you? Why? No, I've worked actually to make it just the opposite of that. And if you look at it in reality, and I think you have a point of view on this, that no, actually things are a lot easier today than they were 50 years ago.
Yes.
Think for everybody.
This. Well, Don, think about this. Think about the Rockefellers. Yeah. Everyone talks about that family and the legacy they left behind. Our kids are experiencing a better life than the Rockefellers, one of the wealthiest families that has ever existed, right? My son has a newer iPhone. He has gotten to see what technology can do for him. Yeah. We have running water. We can fly. If I want to go to Europe tomorrow, I can be in Europe tomorrow. Yeah. Think about that.
You could still be in Europe today if you left now.
Exactly. So I do think that we have such a beautiful life. And when it comes to the U.S., I love this country. Yeah. This country has given me so much. I feel my partner, he's white American, and I usually joke around with him and I say, Josh, I'm more American than you. I go to the Arlington Cemetery in D.C. And I cry for the people that are there. And I give thanks for what they've done for me. And I don't think that many people can understand that level of gratitude, because even with all the political differences that we have right now, we are in the best country that has ever existed.
Yeah.
Right?
And it's better today than it was 50 years ago.
Absolutely.
I said something to my African-American friend. I said, would you agree at least that in the last 50 years things have improved? And his response was, some. Yes, some. But that some is a lot.
Of course.
And it's a lot better than it was 50 years ago. I can see it through my own eyes. I don't have to be African American to see it.
Sure.
Because what I hear a lot of times is, well, you don't have my lived experience. Okay, well, you're just dismissing my opinion then because I'm not black. Yeah. Don't do that. I'm trying to empathize and understand, and I can be compassionate.
Of course.
So allow me that. Mm-hmm. Don't dismiss me. Mm-hmm. If you want to dismiss me, that's fine. The conversation's over. That's your choice.
Sure.
But if you really want to help me understand where you're coming from, you'll have to be better than that.
Yeah.
You can't just dismiss my point of view because I'm not you. Of course I'm not you.
No. I think that at the end of the day, we all have to go in with a level of understanding that everyone is seeing life through their own lenses, right?
Yeah.
And so people might not agree with your opinion or my opinion. I'm seeing it from the lens that I am so grateful to be in this country. This country has given me so much, and it continues to do so. By the grace of God, I'm going to go back to living in California. In 2000, my parents decided that California was not going to be the place for us to create any wealth, right?
Right.
And so
you got to spend too much to live there.
Well, I mean, we lived in a trailer. Like,
Yeah.
what can you do in a trailer? And again, we were very limited. Every argument between my father and my mother was about money. Everything. The moment that we started to work as a very young children, we were responsible for giving 50% of whatever the earnings. If I made $10, $5 were going to my parents,
to the house,
right?
Yeah.
And so after so long, my parents decided that California was not going to be the place for us. They had family in Olathe, Kansas, here in Johnson County. And they basically said, you should come over. Like, there are a lot of jobs at restaurants. You don't have to be breaking your back working on the fields or anything like that. Well, at that point, back in 2000, I'm in 10th grade, so I was in high school. And I remember that it was in March of 2000 that we basically packed the little belongings we had in a van, one of those Ford vans, and moved the whole family to Olathe.
Really?
It was eye-opening, Dawn, coming into Johnson County and starting at Olathe North, which back then it was not very diverse.
Yeah.
And this is 25 years ago. Every white American looked the same to me. Like, everyone looked, everyone's a Smith. And so I was like, everyone looks the same. I couldn't remember the names. Well, what's really interesting is that in high school, I really didn't have the need to speak English. Like, I knew how to read and write, but I just didn't know how to communicate. It was really, really difficult for me. And so I came to Johnson County. 95% of the population is Anglo, if not more than that.
Yep.
And it was really shocking. But one of the things that it did for me was being self-aware of what was going on. And right away, I was able to identify the differences between where I came from in Southern California to where I was. And conversations among my classmates, such as, my dad is a doctor, or my mom is a lawyer, or my dad is an entrepreneur. And, I started to hear all of these words, and some of those words didn't even make sense because I had never been exposed to, right? Yeah. And then I started to hear that they were going to go to college. And I'm like, they're going to go to college? Like, what's college? This is 25 years ago. And so I'm like, well, I'm going to go to college too.
Sure, of course.
I had no idea what it was, even 25 years ago, which blows my mind away, because education was not something that we talked about at school, right? My parents wanted me to drop out of high school and go get a job. Get a job, right? Yeah. 2-3 jobs so you can start helping the family. And so it was really eye-opening to be put in that environment and just be aware of, hold on, they're going to Africa to help people over there. They're going to Europe. Where is Europe? I thought it was just Mexico and the U.S. Like, hold on, the world is so much more bigger than this.
There's only one hemisphere.
Exactly. And so I became so aware. And even though I didn't understand a lot of things, I started to pretend like I did.
Yeah.
I was being without knowing.
Fake it till you make it.
Exactly. And so high school came, and or the end of high school came, and I was the first one who graduated in my family. I thought my parents were going to be super proud. I'm the only girl in the family. Yeah. I have 5 brothers, 3 older, 2 younger. And little did I know that my parents were not proud. They were not surprised. They were not happy. I dragged them to the graduation, but they really didn't want to, because they're like, what are we gonna do there? We don't speak the language. We don't know what they're saying. So it's just a waste of time. I was like, well, I'm going. And I went to my graduation, and I think they ended up going for a little bit. And then right after the graduation, Dawn, I come home, and they still live in this house in Olathe. I came home and I said, Dad, I need you to co-sign my student loans because I want to go to college.
Oh my gosh.
And I still know very little about college, but I had started to do some research, and I knew enough what it meant now at that point, right? And my dad, in the most hateful manner, the guy that had done so much evil to me, looked at me and said, forget about it, in a very colorful way.
Yeah.
If you're lucky enough, some dumbass is going to marry you and take care of you.
Yeah.
Right? And that, I remember, it was so difficult for me to process, because I'm like, there is this guy who's supposed to be my dad, the caregiver, who already destroyed my life by the things he did to me. And now he's telling me that I'm worth nothing.
Yeah.
Right? And it's a difficult pill to swallow.
That's why he could do those things, though.
Yeah.
Because he didn't.
He didn't protect me. Exactly.
Yeah, he wasn't going to protect you. He was not the protector that he's supposed to be.
He wasn't. And so that gave me this fire to say, okay, I got to do something. So what does one do? We get married to exit the house, especially as a Latina woman. So there was this guy who was really good friends with one of my brothers, and we had been dating here and there. And I basically asked him if he wanted to marry me, and he married me. He's the father of my children.
Okay.
We're divorced. We've been divorced now for 12 years. And now I can say it. I don't think that I was able to necessarily think about it like this back then, but I think I saw him as my exit strategy.
Yeah.
I thought, okay, I just need to be out of this environment, right?
Well,
so
I need another man in my life. And if I'm going to pick one, it won't be my dad.
Exactly.
Right?
Or my brothers for that
brothers.
reason,
Well,
right?
Yeah.
And so we got married. I graduated May of 2002. By July of 2002, I was married. By the fall of 2002, I was expecting my now 22-year-old son. And after that, I just felt like I was free to go and just conquer the world. And so I ended up putting myself through school, did earn a paralegal degree, my bachelor's in management, and my master's in business administration. And as I'm working through all of that, my world is getting bigger and bigger, right? And now my ex-husband, his world continued to be very small. He really didn't have plans to prosper or to do anything big in life. And I have this vision of like the $1 billion that I want to be. It's inside of me. Like I just gotta peel the layers and enhance many areas and continue to work. And so I put myself through school, did all of that. And while I was doing that, I landed with a company that did accounts receivable financing for trucking companies, AKA factoring.
Yep.
And so very well known. It falls under the asset-based lending category, which is a $66 billion industry nowadays.
Yeah.
And so I did that for about a year with this particular company. It's a very well-known company here in Kansas City, one of the biggest ones nationwide. And I was with them for right about a year or so. When I was there, I thought, well, I need to find something else because I didn't like the environment at that company. I thought that it was just like very backstabbing, and it was one of those things. The company was growing fast, so everyone was sort of like fighting for the next big position.
Jockeying for the next big thing. Yeah.
Exactly. And I'm a very competitive person, but I will never do it dirty. Like I will not. And I heard about this other company that was opening a factoring company in transportation in Olathe.
Oh, yeah.
And I lived in Olathe, and back then the other company was in Lenexa, and now it's in Overland Park. But I was like, oh, God, like that way I don't have to like drive from all the way from Olathe to Lenexa, which sounds pathetic if you nowadays it's like everything is so connected. But I thought it was like the longest drive. So I'm like, well, I can probably live in Olathe and work in Olathe. So I go on to one of those career builders or one of those pages. And I'm like, sure enough, they're hiring. If they're starting this new factoring company, well, sure enough, they were. Yeah. They were hiring one account manager. I applied for the position, and within 2 weeks, I'm working with that company.
Really?
When I walked in with that company, TAFs, and walked in the first day, they basically said, we kind of have a problem. The gentleman that was supposed to run this new division has been deported by ICE. I was like, okay, well, that's great. What am I going to do about it?
My green card.
Yeah, exactly. But by then I was already, actually that year, in 2007, I was a citizen already.
Good for you.
Yeah,
okay.
Earlier that year, I became a citizen. And anyhow, they said, we have like 3 clients. All 3 clients are Spanish-speaking clients out of Vegas. We have not been able to speak with them because no one here in this company speaks Spanish. But there's your desk, there's your computer, and there's a phone. Good luck. We don't know if we're going to keep that division open. And I just remember, yes, I just remember, Don, that they gave me this little corner, and I was like, young, naive, and I say a little bit stupid. Because I was like, well, if it doesn't work out, I can just go get something equivalent. Yeah. And I'm like, but if it does, like this can be a game changer.
I'm a hero.
Yeah. And so it did. Fast forward, we surpassed that company, the holding company, and all of the other divisions they had. We became very, very profitable, very successful. My business partner, Josh, who is the co-founder of PLEX Capital, at that point, he was the general manager, and I was the VP of sales and marketing. And so we just grew this company. We put a really good team together, great technology. I remember we brought on board Deloitte consultants for a year and a half and implemented everything that you can imagine, from systems and processes and so on. And the company just took off. And so that was from 2007 through 2019. 2019, we had some disagreements with that employer, and my business partner, Josh, and I were fired.
Oh, no.
And yes, and I had never, ever in my life had the luxury of actually sitting down and saying, what do I want with my life?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I mean, I didn't do super well, but I did enough to give me the luxury to say, let me take a sabbatical.
Yeah.
Let me figure out things. What do I want from my life? And I remember this was summer of 2019. I just sat down and I was like, I don't think that I can work for anyone else. And in the meantime, Don, I'm getting calls from headhunters, one in particular that is very well known in our industry, David. And David called me and said, hey, have you ever heard of the Wilks brothers? And I'm like, I have no idea who they are. He's like, well, there are 3 multi-billionaire guys. They're brothers who sold an oil field company back in early 2000s. And they have so many different businesses that they invest in, and they're looking at investing in a factoring company. And so they have heard that you guys are available, and they would like to fly you guys in and talk to you guys. And so we visited a couple of times, but it was the second visit where we were actually sitting with the Wilks brothers, and it's this huge conference room overlooking their toys, all the collections they had on the second floor, overlooking the first floor. And I'm the only woman, the only minority, and the youngest one. And
you checked all the boxes.
All the boxes. And they were all amazing. They were businessmen, right? And I didn't expect anything less than that. And I just remember after so many hours of being there that I walked out of there more convinced than ever that I couldn't work for anyone else.
Yeah.
And so we came back, and nothing against them. They treated me amazing. I thought they were great people. I needed to do something for me and my family, and I needed to take risk, right? I needed something bigger. No one has ever become wealthy by having a paycheck, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so we came back, and maybe a week later, Josh, my business partner, and I met together, and he said, well, what are you going to do? And I was like, I don't know. I'm like, I just don't know that I can't work for anyone. Yeah. Like, I don't think that I can do this ever again because someone will come and pull the rug under me, right? Yeah. And he's like, well, why don't we start a factoring company? And I didn't even think about it. I was like, yeah, let's do it. I mean, like nothing, very relaxed. I was like, yeah, let's go. We literally grabbed a piece of napkin, a napkin, a pen, did the numbers, and then went over to the PLEX pod, which was a a co-working place.
Yeah, I know the place.
Yeah. And so we went there, Don, and we were looking for space so we can start developing the idea and putting the business plan together and so on. And we didn't like the office space, but we liked the name. We're like, ooh, PLEX Capital.
There you go.
PLEX, like plexiglass.
So that's where it came from.
That's where it came. Yeah, that's where it came. And then we, of course, went and looked at the domain, and it was available, so it was meant to be. But it's been a beautiful journey, yes, and we love it. I love working with businesses. I believe in capitalism full-heartedly. Yeah. I think that it works. I'm a big supporter of the ecosystem. I love it. I think that businesses fuel the economy. And when you think about the U.S. economy, last time I checked, it was 28% that they control the world's economy.
Yeah.
And you compare that to Mexico being less than 3%, we're doing something good.
Yeah, I think that capitalism in its purest form is the only system that can work, like where you're democratizing the opportunities. You don't democratize the outcomes.
Of course.
Socialism tries to democratize the outcomes. And I'm curious as to your thoughts because of what's happening now, like in New York City, where we're literally electing democratic socialists. I'm not sure how they put an adjective in front of socialist, whether it's democratic or not. It's still socialism. in some form. Why? I think I just read recently that, was it 43% of young women between 18 and 30 believe capitalism is evil and socialism is not. Why do you think that is?
I think we need to take a look at who we're asking, right? And I will say that even with all my experiences, and again, I just shared a few highlights of my experiences, there's so much more, but we wouldn't have enough time to have a discussion. I think that people are being guided to think differently.
Yeah.
I think that corporations have a responsibility for philanthropy work. They have a responsibility to their shareholders, to their employees, and then philanthropy happens. And there are a lot of people that need our help, Don. So I don't want to necessarily discount that. I think there's our veterans, right?
Yeah.
Our elders.
Sure.
There are many communities that they do need opportunities and that they want those opportunities. But I don't think that is correct that if I have earned $5, right, that you're going to come and take $4 from me to give to other $4 that might not be moving the world forward.
Right. Or themselves.
Or themselves, exactly. I think that it really depends on who you're asking and what their story is. And that's the reason at the beginning when we first started the conversation, I said, my hope is that people can take action and don't victimize themselves. Yeah. Because this is a country where anyone can create wealth. And when I speak here right now, I'm not even close to where I want to be. Like, my vision is so much more bigger, right? Like, I'm scratching the surface. I usually say,
but you got to start somewhere. You don't start at the end. You start at the beginning.
Exactly.
And you struggle through those early days, which makes the outcome, if it is everything you hoped it will be, that much sweeter.
Well, in the journey.
The journey is, I taught myself that, I think, when I started my second company. Well, maybe it was late in the first company, that you have to enjoy the process, because entrepreneurship is not an event.
No.
You don't create a company and then exit the company and then all of a sudden somebody sends you a big check.
Yeah.
It's a process. And it's a long, arduous process. And it takes grit and persistence and courage to stay with it.
A lot of courage. I don't know if you are into biographies and autobiographies, but
not too much.
I love it. My leisure time can be spent on reading. Like, I've become this passionate woman about autobiographies and biographies, and I like to study great people, from Benjamin Franklin to Steve Jobs to Margaret Thatcher to all of these wonderful people. And there's one book that really, really has made a big impact on me. All of them give me something, right? Because when you study great people, you just have so much to take. But the book is Born of This Land, and it is by the founder of Hyundai, the vehicle, Hyundai. If you read his story, when you talk about perseverance, grit, courage, responsibility, the way that this guy came as a child with, I think he was a teenager, with a 6th grade education out of a rice farm in South Korea in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s. If you think about it, right? When Japan is trying to take over. Yeah. I mean, what he went through, you're like, how can I have an excuse when I live in this country with everything that I have access to not be great?
But see, I think that's an immigrant's perspective. I told a story in one of the podcasts, because I tend to tell stories. When I was working for Advanced Micro Devices, the big microprocessor company in the 80s, I lived in the West Coast for a number of years, and I got to witness personally the formation of some really great companies. I mean, really great companies. I got to know their investors. I got to know their CEOs. I got to know people who work there. And it was remarkable. You could walk up and down the street and stop into any building, and here's people starting businesses and doing the most amazing things. And it was inspiring in ways that you can't even imagine, because you could see it before your eyes. It wasn't theoretical. It wasn't in a book. It wasn't somebody telling you this is how it could be.
Right.
You're witnessing it. And this was history being made in many respects. And I I firmly believe that history was made back then, because if it wasn't for microprocessors, there would never have been the internet.
Sure.
And if it wasn't for the internet, there wouldn't be AI. And so all the big revolutionary moments in our technological development, or this whole technical revolution that we've been in since 1980-ish, 75, has been enabled by the stuff that we were doing at AMD back in the 80s when I was there. But back to the story, I became an entrepreneur because I was so inspired by the people who were building companies in Silicon Valley. And the thing that was most notable that really convinced me I should go do this, because I knew I was pretty good with the language. I was articulate. I could convey a vision. I could convince people, persuade people.
Sure.
Pretty good. I thought I was pretty good at that. But I was young. I was 26 when I started at AMD, and I was 36 when I left, so I was young. But what inspired me to leave and go start my own business was the fact that so many of the people doing it were first-generation Americans, if not direct immigrants themselves at that moment. And they, to a person, would tell me, because I'd ask, why? How are you doing this? How are you here? Why would you come all the way here to do this? And the answer was almost the same no matter who you spoke to, because it's the only place in the world you can go and do it.
Yeah.
That's what's remarkable about our country.
It's a golden ticket.
You know, we're an invitation to the world to come and do what Americans can do. We only ask that you come in legally and, check the box, fill out the paperwork, come in at the right place,
which
do the right
makes
things.
sense. And, I will say that that's one of the things that my heart, I really have to analyze my heart and my mind, because people tell me, well, you're an immigrant? I'm like, absolutely. Damn right. I'm an immigrant.
Damn right.
Right?
Well, what we don't think about, because we hear the press talk about, Trump's getting rid of 10 million people who came here looking for a better life and looking for a better whatever. And that's a debate that we could spend an hour and a half talking about. We don't need to. What people don't recognize is there are 37 million immigrants here legally working. We are the melting pot. Yeah. That hasn't changed. Just because we want to, people want to get rid of certain bad actors and others who are here illegally. I don't have a problem with that. I think the president's job is to enforce the law. It's not his fault if the law is faulty. That Congress can go fix that if they don't. But his job is actually to enforce the law. And I have to give him props for at least doing his job, because I think in the previous administration they didn't actually. They did the opposite of doing their job. And to me, that was a violation of their oath of office. I'm here to protect the Constitution. Are you doing that? Well, no, not exactly, because I really don't want to. That's not the option. Sorry. That's, if you told a cop, well, I need you to go give that guy a ticket, he was just speeding. Yeah, I don't really feel like it. Seems like a good guy.
Yeah.
Or I really like that car, the color of the car. Yeah. No. That's not, you don't get to make that decision. You're here to enforce the law, so do your job, right?
No, it's definitely a difficult conversation to have. Again, I'm an immigrant, right? I was born in Mexico, and gosh, do I love my people. I know that my people are hard workers.
Yeah,
like, I see them building houses, building, the whole infrastructure that we have, and my heart goes to them. And of course I want them to prosper because I was given that opportunity. But I go back to Ronald Reagan, and I'm like, there has to be a way. I think on both sides, right, without getting political, I think that on both sides we need to have a little bit more humility and go back to the vision of what this country is meant to be, right? And give the opportunity to the people that are looking for those opportunities to flourish to be able to do so, because I know that my life would be so much more different if it had not been for Ronald Reagan. And to me, I can't say that I've studied everything, the ins and outs about Ronald Reagan, but to me, he's my hero, right? He's my hero because he changed literally the trajectory, not only of my life, but the many generations that will follow after me. And for that, I'm so grateful. And that is the reason why the passion that I have to be able to be of impact and help people, to say, I was given the golden ticket and I can't let it go to waste, right? I need to be able to make an impact and be of contribution, to add to the world and not take to the world. And every morning that I get up, I give thanks for the simple fact that I can roll out of bed. I'm healthy. I have a beautiful home. I have a beautiful community. I have an amazing company. I have an amazing partner. My children are healthy. You know, there's so many blessings that I have that I can sit there and victimize myself with all the other things that I shared with you earlier.
Yeah.
But I can't. I owe it to the world to be more, right? And to do more and impact more. And that's really what I hope that people on any conversations that I have that will get from me. I love everyone, and I understand that we're very divided with political views and so on. Well, this is not a political conversation. This is just like, if you're able to, go do it.
Go do it.
And it's not going to be easy. You said it. The resiliency, the perseverance.
Yeah.
You really, when you found a company, there are times that you're on your knees saying, like, how am I going to make it?
Oh,
right?
I told the story to my wife the other day, because I don't think she knew this, but we had an office just around the corner here. That was one of our first clinics that we opened with the last company I started back in 2012. And I was 56 at the time, which meant that if this didn't work out, there weren't too many opportunities for me to go back and, you know, do it over again or try to replace the money I spent trying to get this company going. I was betting the farm.
You
so
were
to
rolling
speak.
the dice.
Rolling the dice. And there was a tree that had been recently planted where I walked up the stairs to go around the back to the entry to where my office was. And I remember looking at that tree and thinking, how many times is that tree going to lose its leaves before I can feel like we're in a steady, sustainable state? How many times? How many, how many seasons are going to go by?
Sure.
And I would look at that tree from time to time and I'd go, okay, another season's gone by,
Are we doing to me?
Are we better off now than we were before? And I think that's, the inspiration doesn't come from the tree. It comes from the passing of time.
Yeah.
Time is the only natural resource that any one of us can completely control.
Yeah.
And you can either spend your time, I could spend my time working for another company and making a decent salary. I used to do that. I probably could do that again. Or I could spend my time building something that nobody else has ever built into something that, not only would enrich me, but enrich a lot of other people and actually help a lot of people along the way. And,
sure.
I think that, like you with PLEX Capital, you're doing work that is actually good, right? And I think what we did at my last company was work that was actually good.
Sure.
Because the people who we served were so grateful for the service we provided them, much like I'm sure your clients are with the service you provide to them.
Oh, and you never know, and that's a really good point, because you never know the impact you're going to have. I'll give you an example. It was a few years ago that I got a call, and it's still one of our clients. Her name escapes me right now, but the company name is Caring Hearts. So we do a lot of financing in the B2B space, and we finance the actual receivables. So we solve the cash flow issues that companies have.
Yeah.
And I got a call from Carolyn. That's her name. Carolyn is a founder of a staffing agency that basically staffs nurses with hospitals and so on. And Dawn, she called me. She's from Africa. I don't recall exactly what part of Africa, but she called me and said, Amanda, I just want to say thank you. And I'm like, oh, well, that's awesome. Well, we love you too, Carolyn. Like, you've been a really good client. She's like, no, you don't understand. When I came to this country, I went to Donnelly College to just get my nursing my license, right? And then the opportunity came for me to start a staffing agency, and I did, but there was a big problem. I didn't have any capital to float payroll and all the business expenses that I had, right? And she's like, and then somehow I get introduced to your company, and what your company has done for my company is huge, because now, being a founder here in the U.S., being able to take advantage of everything that I've been given, I was able to open up a school in Africa, and now I have 30 girls that I completely finance and send to school. And those are my girls. And I'm changing the world, even in a small little place, right?
World, yeah.
And so I think about that story, and it's one of I've had many stories, but that one, here I am thinking I'm just going to be a finance company. But you don't think about the domino effect it has, right?
Yeah.
Like my work, my gutsiness to go and open up that company is bleeding into other parts of the world where it's literally changing the life of people, right? And how beautiful is that?
It's priceless. It's absolutely priceless. And I admire the fact that you think about you or your business in that way. A lot of people are transaction oriented, right? And that's fine. I'm accepting of anybody in terms of how they think about things. It's not my job to change their point of view. So, I even see marriages where they're very transactional. Well, you got to do this, so I get to do that. Well, you bought this, so I get to buy that. It's like, really? That's how this works? If I spend $10, you get to spend $10?
Yeah.
If I get a weekend golf outing and you get a weekend doing whatever, is that how it works? But I think a lot of businesses think like that, right? And business people think like that. And I remember sitting down with my son-in-law, one of the three of them, and I won't say which one because it would embarrass him, but I said to him, it doesn't have to be transactional. It's not about fairness. It's about caring. It's about what does my partner want, need, that I can accommodate. And hopefully they'll do that in return to me. And that's what give and take is. But it's not based on a quantitative value. It's based on a qualitative value.
You got to be selfless.
Yeah.
I think you got to be selfless. And in business, of course, like I said, you got to be very careful not to confuse charity in your business.
Yeah.
The business
is business.
Business is business, and business has to be profitable,
right? You got to
exactly.
get paid. I remember dealing with patients who would call and say, I can't afford this or I can't afford that. And our response was always, well, let's find a way, right? Well, I was hoping maybe you could discount it this or discount it that or, no, I can't.
I have a business.
I have to make a little bit of money, so I'm here next week or next month when you need me again.
Mm-hmm.
If I did this for everybody, I would be gone in 3 months.
Sure.
I can't do that, and you have to respect that, I hope.
No, and the thing is that I think most businesses understand that part of their responsibility is philanthropy work. If it's a profitable company and it's going to be around for a good time, I think we all, for the most part, most founders understand that. And to me, I don't necessarily get to give at the level that you give by any means, but even if I'm giving like $100, right, at times, to me, it's like the biggest thing is like, wow, like I get to do that. And so we have a level of understanding that our business is for profit and it needs to be ran in such a way that it is profitable. So we get to do all of the other things.
Right. Yeah. And that's, I think, running a sound business, a sustainable business, gives you the options to do other things that you find important in your life or in your, for the life of your company. Without that, you're struggling, right? You're running from pillar to post every month, every week, whatever it is. And I remember my company, the last one, we had to take some merchant cash advances because people would not factor claims
with private insurance.
With they wouldn't. There's no factoring for that in healthcare.
We do a little bit, but we do a little bit, but it's very selective.
Yeah.
And under we actually specialize in healthcare quite a bit. Yes, construction, healthcare, professional services, B2B. We will do with healthcare. There's some specific things that we got to work through. As you can imagine, it's a little more complex, right? And especially when you're dealing with insurance, Medicaid and Medicare is probably the easiest for us to do. But when it comes
because of the government,
exactly,
they're going to pay.
Exactly. But it is complicated, and so you even a highly educated man was cornered to take those predatory lending.
Oh my gosh, it was the horrible
loans, right?
I mean, I took a $100,000 loan, and I had to pay back $150.
Exactly.
I mean, it was insane.
Yeah.
But it saved us.
Of course.
And I paid every dollar back on time, didn't miss a payment. But was it hard? And in fact, I had a falling out with one of my co-founders over it because he had agreed to originally to co-sign those things with me if it ever came to that.
Sure.
And when it came to that, he wouldn't.
Wow.
And I was like, dude, I was hoping we could share this load. When we finally were able to get our big venture capital investment, the first thing I said is, you have to get me off the personal guarantees. Well, how much do you have? $2 million? $2 million. They're like, what? And you're walking around with that? I go, you can't imagine the anxiety that creates.
Of course.
And, it was such a relief to get that off my shoulders. But, at the end of the day, it was what got us to that point. And if I hadn't done it, we would not have gotten to that point.
Yeah.
In fact, that co-founder of mine who said he wouldn't sign, he said, well, Don, I can see if you want to shut this down, I understand.
That is
And I
the
said,
easy way,
well,
right?
You have an $800,000 a year job as a doctor. I don't.
Yes.
This is livelihood to me.
Yeah.
This is a hobby to you.
Yeah.
I said, so thank you for your input.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah,
that's
sometimes
not how I see it.
Sometimes people will just give you the easy way out, right?
Way out, yeah.
But no one that has created history or made history has gotten the easy way. And I think that's the reason why I so much love and enjoy biographies and autobiographies. You know, as you're speaking, I'm thinking about Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett, all of these guys. And I mean, the pain that they share once they get very raw. And it's like, this is not easy.
Oh, yeah.
People like are looking at us right now as multi-billionaires. It's not easy. And I think that it does take a lot of courage. And you got to develop a sense of risk. You got to be able to take risk.
Well, I think that's the thing that separates people like yourself, maybe me, from most everybody else.
Sure.
Is that there's a risk tolerance that you have that not everybody is going to have. And again, I think that's the sum of their experiences, right? That creates this wisdom, and their wisdom is saying, "Oh, don't do that."
Yeah.
You know, and you're saying, "Well, how could we do that?" You're asking the question, right? You're not.
How do
answering
we
it.
do this exactly?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we got this problem. How do we fix it? Oh, I wouldn't tackle that. It's going to be too expensive. It's going to take too long. It's going to be too hard. You can't do it yourself. I mean, all the reasons why don't do it. Right? Yeah. It's a lot easier to say no than it is to say, yeah, I can see that. How would we handle that? How would we fix that?
No, and you're absolutely right. I'm thinking as you're speaking, Don, when I was meeting up with my business partner and we decided to to start PLEX Capital. And his name is Josh, by the way, Josh Good. I think you read a little bit about him as well.
On your website, yes.
He's extremely smart, and really he's the one that is like the back office who runs operations, credit, underwriting, all of that stuff, risk management.
So maybe we should have had him on too.
You should have had him here, right? We got to give him some credit. He's excellent. And I really admire him and respect him and have a high level of trust for him. But I'm sitting here thinking as you're speaking about courage and risk, and I am thinking about 2019 when I said, yeah, let's go into business. Single mom. Mm-hmm. And I had grown to live very comfortably, so my expenses were pretty high.
Yeah.
And here I am thinking about taking a good chunk out of my investments to just roll the dice. And then little did we know that we were going to be going into the pandemic, right? Because that's
2020.
And all I remember is looking at my business partner and saying, look, you either make this work or I'm going to marry for money. Forget about my dignity, right? Like, I'm just going to marry for money. He's like, we don't need to do that. Like, it's okay. But it does take a lot of courage. And now that I think about it, I'm like, how did I do that?
Yeah.
But I think the pain of getting fired the way that we did really got me like to develop this like courage of saying, I can't put myself through that again, ever again. I got to be in control. It's too risky for me to depend on a paycheck, regardless of how good that paycheck it is. Anyone can come and just pull the rug under me and I'll be out. And what's next? And so I think that being able to see that perspective at that point gave me the courage. And then ever since then, especially going into the pandemic, which we didn't know if the world was going to end, it has given me more courage and thick skin and more risk tolerance. And now as I'm sitting here, and our company still needs a lot of development, and we're gonna we have big goals and big vision for the company. And I get more and more risky. Of course, we do our analysis. We try to think about all the possible risk and, eliminate or reduce that. But I don't want to be in the safe zone. The safe zone doesn't make me any money. It doesn't move me forward.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to disagree with you a little bit, and it's your experience, so you can tell me I'm full of it. But
Absolutely.
I think that courage that you claim was created by that negative situation, getting fired from that other company, I think the courage was always there. I think that sometimes you need a trigger. You need something to unleash it.
Sure.
And I think that event wasn't giving you courage. It was triggering the courage that's always in you.
That's a beautiful thing to observe because, I think you're
It was there.
It was
had
there.
to be there because you're even talking about it now. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do more. I'm going to do more. I want to do more. That's there. That's innate. That's part of you, who you are.
Yeah.
But what you were doing before was being in your comfort zone.
Yeah.
It's easier to work for somebody else because I don't have to worry about payroll. I don't have to worry about buying a desk and getting a phone system and all the crap that it takes to build and start a business.
Yeah.
And then, obviously going without an income for whatever period of time. That takes courage, but the courage was there. The impetus wasn't there.
Yeah.
Right? The trigger wasn't there. It's like me at AMD. I spent 10 years there. They paid me incredibly well. I mean, I had a great life. I lived in Newport Beach in a big high rise. I could see the ocean from my office.
Beautiful.
I mean, it was amazing.
Yeah.
It was absolutely incredible. I'm living in a great house and, south of Newport Beach. And people were like, well, you're leaving to go start a business? My first investor was my attorney out there. And he said, look, I don't even understand what you're going to go do. And he said, I don't care. But anybody who would be giving up what you're giving up to go do it, it must be pretty good. So I'm in.
Yeah.
Right? And that's, there was no particular trigger for me other than I needed to contribute more. It was kind of like growing up as a kid, and I was in school and the teacher was asking math questions out loud, and I would always raise my hand because I always knew the answer, because it was too easy for me. And in time, she would stop calling on me. She was like, I know you know, but I need to get these other kids involved. Well, what am I supposed to do in the meantime?
Yeah.
Right? Same thing at my company, right? So I'm working at AMD. I've had 5 different jobs in 3 different cities. I mean, starting in Chicago, coming here to Kansas City, going to California. And I thought I could be doing so much more, but you won't let me.
Yeah, it's like sort of like you have like this lion trapped.
It's like you're not calling me. I'm raising my hand every time you ask a question, but you're still not calling at me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, Don, look, we've already did this, and this for you. Yeah, but I'm giving you everything back in return. Plus, I mean, well, yeah, you've done a great job. Okay, I want to do more. And when there wasn't more to give me, at least at that moment, I thought, then I have to go do my own thing. Because that's the only way I'm going to realize all the things that I want to realize as a person. And I'm listening to you and I'm going, okay, you're just like me. You want to realize all this potential that you have and have had. And that job that you lost was actually the best thing that ever happened in your life.
Biggest blessing.
Right.
Biggest blessing.
So thank you for that.
Yes.
Fire me again if you will, because the courage was always there.
Well, that's a beautiful observation, and thank you so much for that. Because as I look at what's next, in the next 3 years, and as we are ending 2025, and I'm working on my vision and my goals and all of this that I want for my life, and how I want to impact the world. I literally was describing this to my business partner. I'm like, I feel like there's a lion inside of me that needs to be unleashed. Like, we've been playing small, like way too small. What do we need to do, right? And we gotta think big. And once you think big, you're like, you just reverse engineer that, and it's like, there's a way of getting there. How big do you want to think, right?
It's funny you say that. I'm and the producers know I'm working on a project that is really, really big, and I'll share it with you when we're done here because it's not for this particular podcast, but. When I show it to people or tell people about it, they're like, oh, Don, that's just too much. Nobody's going to bite off that much. It's like, well, yeah, but they could.
Yeah.
If you look at other things that have been similar to this, nobody had a problem with that. Why would they have a problem with this? Well, it's just so big. Okay. I'm sorry, I can't think smaller than that. There's no smaller solution. There's no smaller way to do this. We've taken incremental bites from time to time and tried to improve things, but in reality, we haven't improved much. In fact, maybe it's worse today than it was, because we keep throwing Band-Aids on a bleeding, artery.
That needs to be fixed.
It's just need to fix the underlying problem.
Yeah.
And so I think that's how you see things too, is that there's so much more you could be doing.
Yeah.
We just need to unleash that. And of course, you have to have the resources to get it done. But with your successful track record, those resources should come easier to you now than they did initially.
Oh, absolutely. I think that is one of the things that I think being a woman and being a mom, it's actually a positive thing because we're very resourceful, right?
Yeah.
It amazes me what we do if, we found out that we have a stain on our skirt. Let me go wash it, and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that, and like, done deal. Like, we were very resourceful. And especially someone with my background, we had to be resourceful.
Of course.
Right?
And that's, I think, the difference with a lot of people. I think me growing up the way I did too, what people say is, oh, you're incredibly resourceful. And
we had
actually
to.
know how to squeeze a dollar. I squeeze a dollar, and you learn to do that as a young person when you're growing up that way.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's, again, it's a sum of our experiences, right? And without them, maybe you wouldn't be as frugal.
No.
or prudent, or those the kind of qualities
or
that
creative,
or,
very creative, because you had to get creative on
right.
everything. I mean, when you have limited resources, you need to be creative, and so you're making things out of nothing just to be able to sustain yourself.
Right. I remember telling my 7-year-old granddaughter just a month or so ago, when she's learning to ride a bicycle without training wheels. She says, "Well, Papa, how did you learn?" And I said, "Well, we didn't have training wheels back then. My dad put me on the bike and he pushed me.
Yeah, good
and
luck.
I went as far as I could go before I fell over. And then you get up and do it again."
Yeah.
She said, "That's how you learned?" I go, "Yeah."
Yeah.
I said, "But
And you got bruised maybe
yeah,
a little
I got
bit.
scraped knees and all that.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
That was dust yourself off, as Dad would say, and get back on the bike and try it again.
Yeah.
And I said, "So you have the luxury of having training wheels, but if I took them off right now, I guarantee you within 5 minutes you'd be riding your bike."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Well, Don, that's just beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that with me. But it is true. Like we came from environments where we had to be resourceful, right?
We didn't have training wheels.
No training wheels, no. But I do have a question for you. So what were you hoping to get out of this conversation? Because I was really happy when I got the call from Amber, and I was like, well, that's great. And I read about your success. You've had a lot of success. But what were you hoping out of this conversation?
Well, as I do with every podcast, my hope is that the audience can live vicariously through me and learn from you and understand your story and be inspired by that.
Sure.
We want to educate, we want to motivate. It's important to me that every guest has something that the audience can sort of take away from every podcast and go, yeah, you know what? I got something out of that. That was worthwhile to me. But mostly for me personally, it's about meeting interesting people.
Oh, that is beautiful.
And I just love people, and I love the social interaction with them. Somebody asked me the other day why I play pickleball so often. I said, well, because I suck at golf, and golf takes too long.
Yeah.
But the thing I love about pickleball is you can actually get kind of average at it without a lot of work. So you can play at a reasonable level in time, even despite my age and what other infirmities I have. But moreover, I love the social aspect of it. It's just cool to meet new people that are a little bit like-minded, are enjoying something that you can enjoy as well, and enjoying that together. And it's the same as I played ice hockey as an adult for 16 years until I physically couldn't play anymore. And people would ask me, well, what do you miss? And I go, I miss the locker room.
Yeah, the community.
I miss, the camaraderie. When I was, 55 years old and I'm still playing hockey, and I'm thinking to myself, if somebody would have told me 40 years ago that I would still be playing a team sport like this,
sure,
I would have thought, you're out of your mind. There's no way I could physically do that. But I was blessed with the ability to go do it. And to me, the best part of it was the fact that, every time I got on the ice, I thank God for the physical ability to be there. But moreover, I thank God for the people I was with.
I think community is such an important thing. With the trauma that I had growing up, I pushed people away. It was just me, right? A very independent woman. I don't need anyone. I don't need a man. I don't need no one. Like you just sort of like push people away. And the gift that I've been given, and I share this at the beginning with the community that I have at St. Michael's, it's the most beautiful thing. I think the last post that I did on Facebook was about my faith family. And what a gift, right? Like once you find your group of people, and it can be at the church or team-based or wherever, but once you embrace people, and we're all so different, and can respect and love each other, it's the most beautiful thing. Like we cannot do life alone.
No, life would be very lonely if we didn't have people around us. And life would be, in my opinion, boring if we didn't have people around us who had opposing views or different views about things. Of course,
we need them.
We need them.
Absolutely.
It just rounds out the conversation. Look, we don't have to agree on everything.
Sure.
But it's to me interesting just to hear other people's point of view. I listened to your story, just how you came up and the jobs you had, and then losing the job, and then starting PLEX and all these other things, and even borrowing the name from the PLEX pod people. I listen to that and I think every little girl who's sitting there in the field right now, picking up tomatoes or strawberries or whatever it is in the field, they could be you.
Yeah.
That's magic. That's magic. And I hope that the audience sort of understands that that's the beauty of doing these kinds of things, is that your story isn't about PLEX Capital. It's about you and what Amanda went through to become the CEO of PLEX Capital, but to be sitting here across the table from me and having this conversation, the journey that it took, it's inspiring.
Thank you. Thank you. I just hope that I can encourage people. And as I mentioned earlier, I didn't used to share my story that way, but I think that I need to, because people need encouragement. They need to know that it's going to be okay. But what's not going to be okay is just sitting around and victimizing themselves. At some point, we got to take responsibility. We might not love what happened to us or what was done to us, but we got to take responsibility for the healing process and to be able to move forward. And you will never, ever forget what was done to you. Ever. That's always there.
Don't forget. It's not about forgetting. It's about forgiving.
Forgiving. And once you forgive, it's the most beautiful thing. And I usually say this to people that know me very well. I'm like, you don't know how beautiful it is when I can get on my knees and pray, being a regular prayer or a rosary, for those that have done so much harm to me, and to actually feel happy, right? And whenever I'm thinking about praying for someone, and I just basically ask God, like, who do I need to pray for, right? And if that individual that did what did to me comes to mind, or someone that has done other things to me, and to be able to, like, really, with the purest part of me, of my existence, be able to kneel down and say, God, bless this person. God, help this person, right? You have no idea. It's like medicine for me. People say, like, I could never do that. Every time that I do it, Dawn, it's medicine for my soul. You know, and I love it.
It's part of that healing process. You have to, you have to cover over the cracks, you know. And I think it's important. I think it's important to pray. I think it's important to recognize that there's help out there, that there's support out there, whether it's individuals that you surround yourself with, or your faith in God. It's a combination of all of those things. It's not just one or two or three.
It's a recipe,
it's all
right?
Of it. But it's a soup. It's a stew of, you know, everything around you. And I think it's important. I think this conversation is important. You know, you do your thing in your own way, in your little world, and I do my thing. And, you know, I'm trying to give back by doing these things, because we don't have a sponsor. You know, I'm covering the cost of doing all this, because I think it's important that I find ways to share with people the experiences I've had. And hopefully a little nugget here and there is worth somebody's while, and hopefully it informs and helps them in some way. And that's all I can hope for. You know, I got some money. Sure, I could give money to charity, but I don't see it. I don't feel it. I can't.
You don't see the first impact.
You can't measure the impact. You know, I don't even know where most of the money goes, or what program. It's like going to the Big Brothers Big Sisters groundbreaking. Did I pay for a shovel? I don't know. You know what I mean? And that's okay. I mean, they do their thing, and they do their thing well, and I trust them to use the money wisely. But I can't feel the impact. Where here with this and with you, I can feel the impact. I can see this episode as being an inspiration to a lot of people, and I hope to God it is. I really do.
Likewise.
So thank you. Thank you for being here and taking the time and sharing your incredible story. And if there's anything I haven't asked you, tell me now. But I think we covered a lot of ground. But I appreciate you being here so much. It's been such a joy.
Well, thank you. I'm very grateful, and hopefully you truly see that I appreciate the invitation. And this is a conversation that is so close to my heart. Again, because I do want to uplift people. And again, my life is not easy. There's a lot of things that are not right, but I know that there's, like, that tomorrow is going to be brighter, right? Like, the sun always comes out. 100% of the time. And so I'm very grateful for the invitation from you and Amber. And I'm here. Anyone can reach out to me, and if they want to have a conversation. Again, I just shared some highlights of my background, but this is the woman that I've become, and I just hope that God continues to use me, and all for His glory, you know, and be able to do and become the woman that He created me to be.
Well, I wish you the best, doing well.
Thank you.
And doing good.
Thank you, Don.